My name is Chris Harris. I am with the Navigators Toastmasters Club out of Cumming, Georgia, and this is my submission to give the keynote address at the D44 Spring Conference for 2018. Leadership. When you hear the term leader, what comes to your mind? What do you visualize when you hear that term? If you're a workaholic, maybe you think of your boss. Maybe you visualize the owner of your company. If you're a sports guy or girl and you hear the term leader, maybe you think about Tom Brady leading his team down the field. Maybe you think about Derek Jeter leading the Yankees. If you served in the military and you hear the term leader, maybe you think of your commanding officer. Maybe you think of the President of the United States. If you're family-centric and you hear the term leader, you might immediately think of your mother, or your father, or your aunt, or your uncle, whomever raised you, your guardian, your mentor. We all have a different vision in our minds in terms of what leadership or a leader should look like. And I think the reason we all envision something different is because leaders have very few distinguishable physical qualities. Leaders come in all shapes and sizes. Leaders can be tall, leaders can be short, leaders can be old, leaders can be young, black, white, brown, red. Leaders can be typical, leaders can be disabled. Leaders come in every variety. They come from all backgrounds. They come from all ethnicities, all races, all creeds, all colors have their leaders. I'd go so far as to say that if I were to pick any two of you from this audience and bring you up to the stage with me, and I put a blank canvas here and another here, and a partition in between the two of you, and I gave you anything you wanted, anything to sketch, markers, pens, pencils, paints, Crayola crayons, especially that 64 pack we had when we were kids. Remember, it had the gold and the silver and the bronze crayon in it, and it even had that sharpener on the back that worked horribly, but we tried anyway to sharpen the crayons. If I gave you anything and said, draw a leader, you have 5 minutes. At the end of 5 minutes, we would have two completely different drawings. And I believe this. I believe it to my core. I go so far as to say if everyone here had a sheet of paper and I said, draw leadership, at the end of the night, we have 300 different visualizations. And I believe this because I know that leaders are not defined by their outward appearance. No. Leaders are defined by the characteristics that live within. At Toastmasters, or at any point in our professional speaking careers, we've probably been taught, when you give a speech, tell them what you're going to say, and then say it, and then tell them what you said. And I'm going to do that tonight, but I'm going to do it a little differently. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the 3 characteristics of leadership that I hold most dear. But rather than telling you exactly what those characteristics are, I'll simply let you know that tonight you'll hear 3 stories. And in these stories, you'll hear these words. The first, you'll hear the words, "Welcome to the Atlanta Falcons." Hope you're excited about that one. And the second, you'll hear the term, "Our captain for this season is Chris Harris." And the third, you'll hear the words, "I'm not sure we can save his eye." Welcome to the Atlanta Falcons. Our captain for this season will be Chris Harris. I'm not sure we can save his eye. The first characteristic of leadership, leaders tell the truth. I'd like to start off with a little quiz tonight. What do these 5 jobs all have in common. Ready? President of the United States of America, police officer on the bomb squad, an air traffic controller, a brain surgeon, and an Atlanta Falcons football fan. Tell them again. President of the United States of America, bomb squad officer, air traffic controller, brain surgeon, Atlanta Falcons fans. It's really, really simple. What do they all have in common? They are by far the hardest jobs on the planet. And I know, because I've been practicing that last one, Atlanta Falcons fan, for as long as I can remember. To know me is to know that I am a fan of our hometown football club. My family knows, my friends know, former employers know, even the people, the customers during my job that I've served, some of them know. When I was in college, I was working at an ice skating rink. I got a call from a friend of mine before I was going to go in for work that night, and he said, "Hey Harris, what's up, buddy? Guess what, dude? I got 2 tickets for tonight's preseason game, Atlanta Falcons, Philadelphia Eagles. Come on, let's go!" That sounds awesome. But I gotta work. Oh, Harris, you're killing me. Just pick up the phone, call in sick. They're not gonna miss you. I was like, give me 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. I'll call you right back. I hung up with him. I picked up the phone. I called my boss. And I said, "Bob, I know I'm on the schedule for tonight. A friend of mine just called. He's got 2 tickets to the Falcons. You know I'm a huge fan. Do you need me tonight? Can I go?" And he said, "Chris, I really appreciate this. I appreciate how honest you were with me. But I've already had 2 people call in sick tonight. And it's Friday. It's going to be busy. We need you. Say no more. I'll be there." I called my friend. I said I couldn't go. I went. I did my job. But before I left, Bob pulls me aside. He said, "Chris, again, I appreciate your honesty. I promise I'll make it up to you one day. Not necessary, Bob, but thank you." Several months after that, I get a call from Bob, just a random call, and he says, "Chris, how would you like to work for the Atlanta Falcons?" What? What was that? He told me his next door neighbor is the equipment manager for the Atlanta Falcons. And recently, a group of individuals that had worked in the visiting team clubhouse were caught stealing helmets and footballs and selling them on this thing called the internet. Remember, it's 1998. This thing called the internet, they got fired. My next door neighbor hired me to run that crew. And he said, "Pick one guy, not a friend. This is a big stage. Pick one person you know you can trust." And I remember that night that you called me and you told me the truth. And that's how I know that I can trust you. So would you like to work for the Falcons? I think that's what he said, because I believe I had passed out at that point. But when I came to, I remember saying, "Yes, yes, yes, Bob, I'd love to work for the Falcons. This is going to be amazing." I still couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. But I went down to the Georgia Dome anyway. Sure enough, I found myself in the locker room, surrounded by all the players and coaches and helmets, and they got ready to go out and play their first game. And I remember Bob walking up to me and putting his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Chris, welcome to the Atlanta Falcons." And I got that job, and I did that job for 10 years, the job of my dreams, because I was honest. Leaders tell the truth. The second characteristic of leadership, leaders want to make everyone around them better. When I was in high school, I participated as much as I could in different clubs. I was on the soccer team, the cross-country team, I was on the quiz bowl team, I was in the beta club. I was even a member of a club called the Interpersonal Relationship Committee. I know that sounds made up, but believe it or not, it's the truth. So when I got to college at the University of Georgia, I wanted to participate. They had a lot of clubs I could have joined. They did have a soccer club, they had a running club. But as I mentioned in the previous story, I had a job at an ice skating rink, and I'd learned how to skate. And I'd also learned that the University of Georgia had an ice hockey team. So even though I didn't know how to play, I said to myself, "Hey, I can skate. I'm going to play ice hockey. Just to let you know, that's the equivalent of a 16-year-old getting their driver's license and saying, wow, I can drive, and on Sunday, I'm racing NASCAR. Just not going to happen. There are so many things you have to understand and know about the game of hockey other than just being able to skate before you can play. But I wanted to try it. I wanted to do something new. So with the little money that I had as a college student, I bought a bunch of hand-me-down equipment, and I went to our tryouts, and I remember all these guys coming in with these beautiful hockey travel bags from all over the country. There's Johnson, number 62. He played out of Chicago. Patterson, number 4. He played out of Maine. Here's Chris, out of Lawrenceville, Georgia. He played out of PlayStation 2. But I did my best. I tried. I put on my second-rate equipment, and I went out there, and during warm-ups, in terms of skill, it was apparent to the players, to the coaches, I had none. And when we had that first practice, I got knocked from one end of that rink to the other. Knocked down more times than I could count. And every time I got knocked down, I said to myself, maybe this just isn't for me. But something inside me made me get up, dust myself off, and try again. I tried as hard as I could every practice, 100%. During the games, that first year I never played, but I wanted to encourage the team as much as I could. So from the stands, I shouted and I yelled and I cheered as much as I could. And in the few games that I did have an opportunity to dress out, I was on that bench encouraging everyone. Great pass! Awesome goal! Let's get these guys! The season came to an end, but I vowed the next season I would be better. And I played almost every day between the end of that first season and the start of the second. And when we started that second season, I was not the best player on the ice. But I was no longer the worst. And there were people coming into our team who were brand new. Some of them even new to the game. And I made it my personal responsibility to take them under my wing. And the other players, they noticed. And the coaches, they noticed. They were better than me, I tried to make them better. If they weren't as good as me, I tried to make them better. The night before our first game, players and coaches, we all vote in terms of who the captain will be for that season. I voted for the best player. I knew it wasn't going to be me. I wasn't going to be captain. When they announced, I was very surprised to hear my coach say, and our captain for this season will be Chris Harris. I was never the fastest. I was never going to score 20 goals. I was never going to win every fight. But they knew I was going to do everything I could to make them better. That was my goal. Because leaders try to make everyone around them better. The third characteristic of a leader: leaders make sacrifices. When I was younger, sports were a big part of my life. When I got older, I met the love of my life, a young lady from Augusta, Georgia. In 2013, we had our son. In 2014, we had our daughter. And while I love my Falcons and I love my hockey, and from time to time I love my job, family is number one in my life. During the Christmas holiday of 2017, the end of last year, the kids and I got into this great game. We called it Bad Dad, where we would move the coffee table and everything out of the way in our living room, and I would be Bad Dad, and the kids would be the heroes trying to stop whatever Bad Dad was doing that day. We loved that game, and I would take the kids, and I would wrestle around with them, and then I would throw them on the couch. In case anyone from DFAX is here, when I throw them on the couch, very gently, not abusive, very gently, always worried about their safety, very gently. And sometimes I would wrestle with my son, and I'd climb on top of him, and I would tickle him, and his little eyes would go back and forth. And I noticed that when I was on my son and tickling him, the light hit his eye just right. I noticed this little flash. I didn't think much of it. I saw it a couple times, and I finally decided to Google it. There are a lot of things it could have been. It could have been an imperfection in his lens. There was also something called eye boogers. Eye boogers. That's a real thing, eye boogers. And it's funny until you read what it could be just below that. And you see the word cancer. With no time to spare, we took him to see an optometrist. The optometrist looked in his eyes and said, "I don't see anything." And I'm terrified. I said, wait. And I twisted and I turned my son every way imaginable, trying to get the light to hit his eye just as it had done in our living room. And the doctor says, I don't see it. And I persist. Please, just put in whatever, that microscope, do that thing with the light, and his chin goes, just do that. And reluctantly he agrees. And he puts my son into this device, and he looks into one eye, and he's like, I don't see anything. And then he looks into the eye where I'd seen it before, and he is clearly taken aback. And he says to me and my wife, he says, "Have you ever heard of the term retinoblastoma?" No. It's an incredibly rare form of eye cancer. Last year in the United States, there were 4 million live births, 200 cases of retinoblastoma. 1 in 20,000 are your chances. And we just won the lottery in a bad way. We took our son to Emory. They did their examination. The doctor came to talk to us, and he said retinoblastoma is graded on a scale of A to E. A, the easiest to take care of and treat. The E, you need to prepare for the worst. Your son is a D, a borderline E. And this doctor, one of the best in the country, if not the world. We sit down with him, and my wife and I are like, all right, Doc, we're ready. What's the plan? Tell us what to do. What's the plan here? What do we do? And he says, well, I can remove the eye. Or we can try to treat it. It might take 2 years. But ultimately, I'm not sure we can save the eye. What do you want to do? I am not a doctor. I work in software sales. I was hoping for a definitive treatment plan. Instead, it comes back on me. And before doing anything drastic, you always want to get a second opinion. So we found a doctor in New York doing revolutionary things with retinoblastoma and its treatments. We flew up to see this doctor, arguably the best in the world. He examines my son. And while my wife and I were hoping for better news, he came back to us with an even worse diagnosis. On that scale of A to E, he said, you're a solid E, and there's a chance this could spread. So once again, all right, Doc, you're the guy. What's the plan? What do we do? What are we going to do here? What do you got? And deja vu washes over me as he says, well, I can remove the eye, or we can try to treat it. Might take more than a year. I'm not sure we can save the eye. What do you want to do? Here we go again. 2 doctors, 2 of the best in the world. And that decision has to rest on my wife and I. We could fight. They would poke and prod my son for 2 years, and at the end, we might still lose the eye anyway. We always triaged it like this. Save his life. Save his vision. Save the eye. Save his appearance. And we knew that in order to save his life, we could do it but it would cost him and I. We thought long and hard about it. And ultimately, we came up with this thought, and that is, there is cancer in our baby's head, and we have got to get it out. I made 4 calls that afternoon to tell the doctors involved what we wanted to do. And 3 days later, my son's eye was gone. And fortunately, weeks later, we did testing again, and he is cancer-free. Leaders make hard decisions. Leaders make sacrifices. You know, I think good leaders know what to do, and they will tell others what to do and how to do it. But great leaders will share in the sacrifice. Great leaders know what to do, and they will grab you by the hand, and they will say, "Follow me." That is leadership. Great leaders tell the truth. Great leaders try to make everyone around them better. Great leaders will sacrifice. And these 3 characteristics, these 3 pillars of leadership are mental. They're here in the brain. The true leaders, they have to have it here. They have to have it in the heart. Because just like the body, you must put the right things inside the heart for it to work correctly. With the body, if you give it too much sugar, or too much alcohol, or too much fat, the body works poorly. But if you give the body good food, and water, and nutrition, and exercise, the body is strong. And the same is true of the heart. A leader's heart cannot be filled with hate. It cannot be filled with jealousy. There's no room for holding a grudge in the heart of a leader. A leader's heart is not intolerant. And a leader's heart is never selfish. In the heart of a leader, there is no room for hate. That is where love goes. A leader's heart will never be jealous of the success of others. It will only feel joy for those successes. A leader's heart will not hold a grudge. If it does, there's no room for forgiveness. A leader's heart will not be intolerant to others. It is only understanding. And a leader's heart will never be selfish, no matter how little it has. The leader's heart always wants to share. And if those things are in your heart, you may have the makings of a great leader, and you will make the mentoring of the future generation of leaders your personal responsibility. You'll tell them the truth. You'll tell them how to make their speeches better when they come to Toastmasters, and you'll do it in a supportive way. But you'll also tell them the truth about how to make their lives better. You'll make it the responsibility to make those new leaders and all the people around you better by encouraging them to go beyond just Toastmasters and their clubs and their groups and their meetings, and to go out and make the world a better place, making everyone around them better. And leaders will sacrifice their time with their families, their time with their friends, their time with work, to devote to the leaders of tomorrow. At Toastmasters, we talk so much about speaking, but I believe it is our actions that will truly define us. And I look around this room and see a group of people who are ready to lead. And if you are, I implore you, let this conference be the spark that starts that fire in your heart. Let it ignite and burn brightly through this conference, through next week, next month, this year, the rest of your life. Because if you lead properly, the future generations of leaders that come after us will fan that flame of leadership long after we're gone.